What's up, y'all? We're gonna be breaking down Apple and Google, and the reason why we're gonna be breaking down Apple and Google is because last week I bought Apple and Google for my sons. I got three sons; they are under 5 years old. I got one 4 year old and two 1.5 year olds. Right, so I got them UTMA accounts, and I invest into their future because obviously it's important to do for all y'all parents out there. I recommend doing it. So they got Google and they got Apple, right? They got six stocks apiece. And I am so happy to be doing this. It's just nothing but a blessing, y'all. And for all y'all who want to do it, it's really easy. All you gotta do is go to any brokerage, firm, whether that's Fidelity, wherever you want to go, right? And E-Trade, wherever you want to go, and then you just go and sign up for an UPMA account for your kid, and you can start buying stocks and making your children investors sooner because it is going to be important if they want to go to school. If they, it's always hard when you're a young adult, right? Because you're still trying to figure it out. So if they have some type of money saved up for them, then they can kind of figure it out while they're doing whatever, right? And so that's why it's important. That's why I did it. I had a friend, not going to share his name, but we both worked in window treatment sales positions, right? So we were the ones who, if you needed a custom window treatment, we were your guys. Now, when I was talking to him one day, he was blaming his parents, and he said he blamed his parents because he thought that he would have been better off if his parents would have set him up for success, right? Now, this is a topic now because a lot of people are feeling like their parents did not set them up for success. I would never want my children to feel like that. And so that's why I'm working as hard as I can possibly work. Um, but I think as men, and again, not to get off topic, but as men, we get a hard stigma on us because we constantly are working, and it's hard to do both, right? Like you can't um, be a provider and still be there for your children 100% of the time. So basically, what I'm saying is you can't live in your purpose and be there for your children 100% of the time. But as a man, you have to kind of deal with that, right? So Tim Grover actually tells a story of his daughter. She was 5 years old, and she said, "Daddy, why are you always traveling?" And so he said, "Well, I provide for you and your mom and so forth." And then she said, "Well, if I eat less, can you stay home more?" And he said, that really hurt him. But the end of the story was him packing up and going to work, right? And so he told that story, and most people would think, well, when you have to sacrifice, that is, what you're supposed to do. But nobody talks about the mental toughness that it takes. And shout out to all the real men that's doing it. And that's what's up, right? So moving on, I just wanted to, add that, because I have felt that way as well throughout my journey. The end of the story was she gets older, and she comes to him to talk about whatever, and he decides to bring up the moment of when she was five and what she said to him. And he wanted to tell the reason why he was doing the things that he was doing, and she said, "Daddy, I get it. You don't even have to explain. I know you was trying to provide for me and mommy and so forth, right? And you did a great job, and I'm very proud of you." So I say that, to say, we got to keep going as men and continuing to fight, right? So let's go to the Apple and Google breakdowns, right? So we're going to start with Apple Moat. And now For anybody who don't, know what the terminology mode is, I'll have it up on the screen. But it's the terminology that Warren Buffett came up with. Basically, it's talking about a company competitive advantage, right? That's essentially what it is. What is so unique about the company? So what's so unique about Apple is ecosystem. So Apple products work together very well. Now when I say that, if you have an Apple Watch and you have an iPhone, well, if you are rushing to work and you forget your iPhone at your house, you don't have to turn back around because you can use your Apple Watch, right? And so they work very well together. And so because they work very well together, Apple has pricing power. Now, pricing power is important. Now, a little while ago, about 10, 15 years ago, that is, Warren Buffett bought Coca-Cola. Maybe it was longer, right? So I'm not too sure, but it was a long time ago, whatever. He bought Coca-Cola, and when he purchased Coca-Cola, he said that he just added 1 penny to Coca-Cola products and he earned millions of dollars doing so. So Apple has pricing power because if Apple add a dollar or two to their products, people are still going to buy Apple products because they are that good, right? And also they are a trusted brand. People trust Apple as well. Title iPhone, you want to go ahead and get an Android. Okay, you can get an Android and you can keep the iPhone watch. But if you leave your Android phone and use your iPhone watch, it's not going to store your data. You also have free cash flow. So this is important because Apple have free cash flow. They're allowed to be innovative. They are allowed to do things that their smaller competition just can't do because they don't have the money to do so. Apple also can pay its debt because they have free cash flow. The other thing Apple has is a good ROIC. So Apple return on invested capital, ROIC, is 50%. So that means for every dollar that Apple invests, they get back 50 cents, which is great, right? Now, their WACC, weighted average cost of capital, is only 10%. So that means how much do it cost Apple to get to that 50%? What is the debt? How much does it cost, right? So it only costs Apple 10%. Apple is also a large cap company, meaning that it is less volatile in the market. So it comes with less risk because it's a large cap company. It's not like a small cap or a mid cap company. Now let's move on to Google because Google moat is its competitive advantage. And the reason why Google have a competitive advantage is because people, one, they trust Google. Google has been around for a very long time, and Google is the default to any search that you're trying to do, right? So a lot of people trust Google more than they trust even ChatGPT or Perplexity, right? So Google moat is its competitive advantage. It will be hard to switch from Google because of the cost of switching. They also have ad revenue that they do as well, and their ad revenue is always going up. The reason why is because they have pricing power. They can continue to increase their ad revenue, which will continue to profit the company, right? So that is good for investors to know. They also have YouTube ad revenue as well, right? So Google has a huge space in terms of the gap between its competitive advantage, right? It has a huge gap between its competitors, right? So that is important to note. They also, Google has free cash flow and they are able to innovate when you look at Gemini 3, and they also able to pay off their debt as well. So Google could still be innovative, they could still pay off their debt, and companies, or I'm sorry, and investors love companies like this, right? So that's extremely important. Now, Google's WACC versus ROIC. Google WACC is 8%, Google's ROIC is 24%. So Google is a good company because they are up 16 points, right? So their WAC is low and their ROIC is high. Now, you do not want a company that have a higher WAC than ROIC because that means they are not generating a return on their capital. They are debt heavy, right? So you want to stay away from companies like this, okay? So I broke down the 5 fundamentals of a company. Now, it is more fundamentals that you have to look at. And don't just take my information. This is for educational purposes only. Do your own homework, okay? I am not a tax advisor, so do your own homework. But this is my journey of what I do when I look for a company, okay, y'all? So I hope this gave some clarity, some information as to what you can do when you are breaking down a company, okay? Thank y'all for watching. I'm out.